It's 2:44 a.m. The microwave clock glows an artificial green in the dark, the only proof that time is still moving. You're standing barefoot at the kitchen sink, filling a glass of water because your throat was dry and sleep wouldn't come. The house is silent. The kind of silence that only exists in the middle of the night. Your family is upstairs, breathing softly, wrapped in dreams about work, school, tomorrow. Outside, the neighborhood is black and motionless. No cars. No wind, no warning, just water hitting glass. And then the world turns white. Not sunrise white, not lightning, not headlights sweeping across the blinds. Something else. A dome of light erupts beyond your window. So bright it erases shadows. So violent it makes your kitchen brighter than noon. The cabinet behind you suddenly holds the razor-sharp silhouette of the glass in your hand. Every edge defined, every surface exposed. It's the kind of brightness that feels physical, like pressure against your eyes. But there is no sound, no thunder, no explosion. No distant rumble rolling across the miles, just impossible light pouring into your home at 2:44 in the morning, while the rest of the world sleeps. Your brain refuses it. The sun does not rise at 2:44 a.m. Lightning does not climb upward from the horizon. Nothing natural sustains brightness like this. Nothing innocent glows this long. The dome shifts. White bleeds into yellow. Yellow deepens into orange. Orange pulses into a sickening red that crawls toward the stars like something alive. Something hungry. Something that just swallowed a piece of your city. The glass slips from your hand and shatters across the tile. You don't look down. Because you know. The part of your mind that absorbed every documentary about the Cold War, every history lesson about Hiroshima, every late-night news segment about rising tensions between nuclear powers. That part isn't confused. That part is certain. A nuclear weapon has just detonated, and you are still breathing. But here is what you don't understand yet, what will determine whether you are still breathing in 15 minutes. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. The flash reached your eyes instantly. But the shock wave, the wall of compressed air tearing outward from ground zero, is slower. Around 760 miles per hour, roughly 1 mile every 5 seconds. The silence isn't safety. The silence is a countdown, and you just started it. 15 minutes until that invisible wall reaches your house. 15 minutes until every pane of glass in your home becomes horizontal shrapnel. 15 minutes until physics arrives. You're 12 miles from the blast. You don't know that yet, but your body does. No sound means distance. Distance saved you from the fireball, the expanding sphere of plasma that vaporizes everything within its core. It saved you from instant incineration, but distance will not save you from what's coming. The mushroom cloud is forming now, rising in terrible slow motion, a pillar of smoke and fire twisting upward into the upper atmosphere. At its base, an entire section of the city no longer exists as it did 10 minutes ago. 45 seconds have passed since the flash. You haven't moved. Your hands grip the counter so hard your knuckles ache. Your feet feel rooted to the tile. This is called behavioral inaction. Studies of sudden disasters show that 70 to 75% of people freeze when confronted with something that violates their understanding of reality. The brain loops. It tries to reconcile. It tries to wait for confirmation. This cannot be happening. Not here. Not now. Not on a Tuesday. 10 to 15% act immediately and correctly. 10 to 15% panic. Run to windows, step outside to look, waste precious seconds making catastrophic decisions. Which percentage are you? The math doesn't care. The shockwave doesn't care. It keeps running toward you at 760 miles per hour. 13 minutes remain. At 12 miles from a 100 kiloton detonation, the thermal pulse can still cause burns. You might already have first-degree burns on exposed skin and not feel them yet. Adrenaline buries pain. It buries everything. But the overpressure wave is what matters now. When it arrives, the air itself will become a weapon. 1 pound per square inch of overpressure is enough to shatter windows. A multi-megaton detonation can push that threshold out for miles. You don't know the yield. You don't know if it was tactical or strategic. You don't know if it was one warhead or many. You only know you are inside the damage radius. And here's the part no one explains clearly. Windows don't simply break. They explode inward. The pressure front hits. The glass flexes for a fraction of a second. And then fails catastrophically. Shards accelerate horizontally at over 100 miles per hour. In open spaces, glass fragments can travel hundreds of feet. Inside a house, that debris field is your kitchen, your hallway, your living room. Any line of sight to the outside becomes a kill zone. 12 minutes remaining. Have you ever timed how long it takes to reach your basement? Most people haven't. That number might be the difference between walking away and bleeding out on your own floor. 90 seconds since the flash. The orange glow outside stabilizes into something disturbingly beautiful. The mushroom cloud climbs higher, illuminated from within by internal lightning. Electrical discharges snapping inside the churning column of ash and vaporized infrastructure. Your city is already different. Emergency systems are already overwhelmed. Power grids near ground zero have collapsed. Communications are flickering. Military radars are recalculating trajectories. Somewhere, deep underground, decision makers are staring at screens filled with incoming data. Because this is not just an explosion, it is an event, a signal. If this was a strategic strike, retaliation may already be airborne. The world you went to bed in may not exist by sunrise. 10 minutes remaining. Here's the secret most people never realize. The reason so many blast survivors die anyway. It's not the heat. It's not even the collapsing buildings. It's hesitation. People move toward windows to see what happened. They stand in hallways. They waste minutes calling loved ones instead of taking cover. They underestimate the physics. At minute 8, the window of survivability begins to narrow. If you are still standing in open space when the shock front hits, you are gambling with pressure waves that can collapse lungs, rupture eardrums, and turn everyday objects into missiles. You need mass between you and the outside. Basement, interior room, concrete, below ground if possible, away from windows, away from exterior walls. 8 minutes remaining. Upstairs, your family is still asleep. They have no idea that history just detonated 12 miles away. And now the question becomes heavier than physics. Do you freeze? Do you run? Or do you lead? Because World War III doesn't always begin with sirens. Sometimes it begins with a glass of water at 2:44 a.m. and a light so bright it turns night into judgment. 7 minutes remaining. Move. The mushroom cloud is fully formed now. From this distance, it looks almost unreal. A towering column of ash and fire rising into the stratosphere, illuminated from within by flames you cannot see but somehow feel. Internal lightning flickers inside it, silent veins of energy snapping through the swelling mass. It's hypnotic, terrible, beautiful in the way only extinction-level events can be. And your first instinct is to step closer to the window, to press your face against the glass, to witness history. Every human impulse tells you to observe, to understand, to confirm with your own eyes that this impossible thing is real. That instinct will blind you. The thermal pulse from a nuclear detonation can cause retinal burns at distances exceeding 25 miles in clear conditions. The flash you just saw was intense enough to permanently damage eyesight with direct exposure lasting more than 2 seconds. You looked away on instinct. That instinct may have just saved your vision, but across your city, right now, thousands of people are standing at their windows, staring, squinting, trying to comprehend the glow on the horizon. They don't feel pain. They don't feel heat on their eyes. Retinal damage happens faster than the nervous system can report it. By the time the light fades, some of them will realize the darkness isn't lifting. They will blink, and nothing will return. But blindness is only the second worst outcome of standing where you're standing. The worst arrives in 11 minutes. Glass. Every pane between you and the outside world is about to become a weapon. When the shock wave hits, the overpressure slams into your house like a moving wall of physics. The exterior air pressure spikes instantly while the interior lags behind for a fraction of a second. That differential is all it takes. Windows don't crack gently. They don't fall out of their frames. They detonate inward. Thousands of razor fragments accelerate horizontally into whatever space lies behind them. Living rooms become fragmentation chambers. Kitchens become shrapnel corridors. Hallways become tunnels of flying knives. Most civilian casualties in nuclear blast zones do not die from the fireball. They do not die from radiation. Not immediately. They die from debris. From standing in direct line of sight to windows. From watching history through glass when they should have been hiding from it. This is the secret, the one no one imagines during drills or documentaries. 70% of blast survivors die because of normalcy bias. They freeze, they hesitate, they observe instead of act. They survive the flash of apocalypse only to be shredded by their own living rooms. 11 minutes remaining. Your processing time is over. Step away from the window, turn around, move. Your feet finally unlock from the tile. The broken shards from your dropped glass crunch beneath your bare soles. You feel the sting, but it barely registers. Adrenaline has taken control now. Your body is no longer debating reality, it is reacting to it. 10 minutes remaining. You cannot outrun a shockwave. You cannot drive faster than 760 miles per hour. But you can put mass between you and the glass. A standard wood frame house offers 2 to 3 times more protection than open air. A basement offers nearly 10 times more. Reinforced concrete structures can offer 50 to 100 times more shielding from blast and radiation. You sprint toward the basement door. 9 minutes. As you move, you throw open every interior door you pass. Bedrooms, bathrooms, closets. Every instinct screams to shut them, to barricade, to seal yourself inside something. But closed doors during a pressure event don't gently swing open. They explode off their hinges. A 50-pound slab of wood becomes a missile. Open doors allow pressure to equalize. Open doors reduce internal structural failure. Open doors save lives. 8 minutes. You are shouting names you've spoken 10,000 times in ordinary life. Names that have never sounded like this before. Names that now carry urgency so sharp, it almost hurts. Confused faces appear in doorways upstairs, illuminated by a strange orange glow leaking through blinds that should be blocking darkness, not fire. What's happening? There is no time. Basement. Now. Don't look at the windows. Move. Your voice has changed. It's no longer conversational. It's command. 7 minutes. Your family stumbles down the stairs. Your daughter is crying without understanding why. Your spouse is trying to stay calm, asking questions in a voice that's trembling despite the effort. You grab a heavy comforter from the hallway closet and drag it behind you toward the basement. A blanket against a nuclear blast sounds absurd, but when the shockwave hits, ceilings crack, drywall fractures, dust erupts into the air so thick it can choke you, debris falls, insulation rains down. A thick layer over your heads can mean the difference between minor injuries and deep lacerations. 6 minutes. You herd everyone to the farthest interior basement wall, the point with the most earth and concrete between you and the outside. There's a small ground-level window on one side. You position yourselves as far from it as physically possible. 5 minutes. You pull the comforter over all of you like a tent. Bodies pressed together. Concrete at your backs. The air feels heavier down here. 4 minutes. This is the moment most people never think about until it's too late. What would you grab if you had 4 minutes before your house shook itself apart? Phone? Water? Flashlight? Shoes? You don't have time for a checklist now. You have positioning, you have shielding, you have seconds. 3 minutes. The basement darkens further as the external glow shifts. Only a faint orange leak filters through the small window, casting distorted shadows across concrete walls. Your family presses against you. Through the blanket you can feel their heartbeats. 3 separate rhythms, all too fast. 2 minutes. The silence is unbearable. Above you, the house makes ordinary sounds. The refrigerator hums. The furnace clicks. Wood contracts. Pipes tick softly. The mundane soundtrack of a structure that has no idea it is about to be tested by forces it was never designed to endure. 1 minute. Somewhere above, the shockwave is tearing through neighborhoods closer to ground zero. Cars are flipping, roofs are peeling, power lines are snapping like threads. And then, you feel it before you hear it. A low-frequency thud, not like thunder but like the sky itself exhaling. The pressure front slams into your house. The entire structure shudders as if struck by something enormous and invisible. Glass detonates upstairs in a cascading explosion. The sound is not a single crash, but a rolling wave of shattering, a violent storm of fragments hitting walls, floors, furniture. The air pressure inside the basement shifts abruptly. Your ears pop painfully. The ceiling above cracks like distant gunfire. Dust rains down in choking clouds. The floor vibrates beneath you as if the earth itself is unsettled. Your daughter screams. The comforter absorbs falling debris. The house groans but holds. And then, just as suddenly as it began, The violence passes, not silence, but aftermath. The first wave of World War III has reached your home, and you are still breathing. 90 seconds. Your daughter whispers something under the blanket, her voice so small it barely survives the thickness of fabric and dust. You can't make out the words. Your spouse's hand finds yours in the dark and squeezes, hard enough to hurt, hard enough to anchor you to something solid in a moment that feels anything but. Outside, a neighbor's dog is barking. The sound is painfully ordinary, obscene. 1 minute. The orange glow filtering through the cracked basement window flickers. Unstable now, as if the horizon itself is breathing. The mushroom cloud has risen miles into the upper atmosphere, expanding, cooling, condensing into that terrible anvil shape burned into humanity's collective memory. Inside it, radioactive particles are beginning their long descent. Microscopic fragments of buildings, asphalt, steel, soil, and human lives vaporized and fused into something poisonous. But fallout is a future problem. Fallout belongs to whoever survives the next 60 seconds, 30 seconds. You pull the comforter tighter around all of you. Close your eyes even though the basement is nearly black. You start counting heartbeats because counting feels like control, and control feels like survival, even when it's an illusion. 15 seconds. Maybe you miscalculated. Maybe the blast was farther away. Maybe the shockwave has already dissipated, weakened by distance and terrain. 5 seconds. Hope feels worse than fear. Hope is just denial wearing a different mask. 0. The sound arrives first. Not a sharp explosion. A rumble. Low. Rolling. Like distant thunder that forgot to stop. It builds instead of fading. It grows instead of dying. It becomes a roar that seems to fill the walls themselves, pouring through cracks, vibrating concrete, pressing against your ears from every direction at once. And then the house moves. Not shakes. Moves. The foundation shifts beneath you with a deep, violent lurch. The walls groan with sounds you've never heard before. Wood fibers straining, nails pulling, concrete flexing under pressure it was never meant to endure. Upstairs, something heavy slams to the floor. The small basement window doesn't crack. It detonates. Glass explodes inward in a violent spray, scattering across the floor 3 feet from where you're huddled. A lethal cloud of fragments slices through the air and embeds in drywall, insulation, furniture. If anyone had been standing near it, they would be bleeding from 100 wounds right now. The lights were already out, but now the house truly dies. The refrigerator's hum cuts off completely. The furnace clicks and goes silent. Somewhere beyond your neighborhood, substations have failed. Transformers have ruptured. The electromagnetic pulse riding the detonation has collapsed the grid across entire regions. Cars newer than a certain year have stalled. Cell towers have blinked dark. The pressure wave lasts maybe 4 seconds, but those 4 seconds contain a lifetime. Cracking, splintering. The violent percussion of objects thrown from shelves. Joists overhead creak and strain, bending but holding. Dust rains down through floorboard seams, filling the air with the smell of old wood, insulation, and something metallic. Something chemical, something wrong. Then it's over. Not silence, a different silence. The silence of a wounded structure. The silence of a neighborhood that will never sound the same again. The silence of a world that just broke and hasn't figured out its new shape. You stay under the comforter. Afraid to look. Afraid to see what remains of the rooms you lived in 15 minutes ago. Somewhere outside, a car alarm wails. Shrill, repetitive, absurd. A leftover reflex from the old world, still functioning even though everything else has stopped. It cuts through the darkness like mockery. Your daughter's voice rises again, trembling. Is it over? You open your mouth to answer. Nothing comes out. Because how do you explain that what just happened was only the beginning? That the flash was the opening sentence? That fallout will begin drifting down within hours, invisible and silent. That downwind communities, towns that never saw the light, are already marked. That hospitals, if they're still standing, are overwhelmed with burns, lacerations, crushed lungs, ruptured eardrums. That supply chains, food, fuel, medicine, have just fractured in ways that don't repair quickly. What ended was 15 minutes. What begins now is measured in days, then weeks, then whatever remains of years. The car alarm finally dies mid-wail. The silence becomes absolute. Dust settles slowly through the darkness, turning the air thick and granular. Your lungs burn slightly with each breath. Above you, through fractured floors and broken windows, the orange glow continues to pulse against a sky that will never look quite the same again. Because somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond the smoke, beyond the rising column of radioactive ash, decisions are being made. Satellites have already registered the launch. Early warning systems have already calculated trajectories. Submarines beneath black oceans have received coded transmissions. This was not just an explosion. It was a message. And if it was answered, if retaliatory launches are already airborne, then what you felt tonight may be only one detonation in a chain reaction that spans continents. World War III does not begin with marching soldiers. It begins with light, with silence, with a house that moves in the dark. You slowly lift the edge of the comforter. The basement is coated in fine gray dust. Shards of glass glitter faintly across the floor like frost. The small window is a jagged hole in the concrete wall, night air creeping in. Your home is damaged, but standing. You are bleeding slightly from your feet, but alive. For now. Above you, beyond broken glass and fractured wood, the mushroom cloud continues to climb, expanding outward at the top, blotting stars from the sky, rewriting the shape of the horizon. And, somewhere in that glowing column, history is still rising.